Hi everyone, welcome back to Move to Asia. Today we are diving into a hot topic for entrepreneurs and businesses sourcing from China versus Vietnam. I'm Guillaume and today I'm joined by Vin Ho, our guest in today's discussions. Welcome, Vin.
Hey, welcome. How you doing, Guillaume?
Very good, and you?
I'm good, thank you.
So, Vin, let's start by an overview. Many companies have relied on China for decades due to its massive infrastructure, production capacity, and efficiency. For example, nowadays, China accounts for around 30% of the global manufacturing output, making it the world's largest manufacturer worldwide. But recently, things have changed, and Vietnam has emerged as a strong competitor. Why is that within?
You bring up a good point, Guillaume. China has always been at the forefront of manufacturing for at least the last 20 or 30 years. They're such a big country. They offer efficiency, production, and labor and low cost. So they've been the go-to manufacturing capital of the world, so to speak. So from everything, if you can imagine, from electronics, clothing, textiles, machinery, anything like that. So I would say things started to change maybe around 2018 or the last 5 or 8 years. It seems like there's more adversity between China and the United States. We saw that with the election of Donald Trump here in America, and then him putting on these China tariffs. So up to about 25% now on a lot of goods imported from China into the United States. So what essentially is happening is it's making products more expensive for consumers in America and for the companies that operate and buy their products from China. So having said that, I would say maybe 2, 3, or 4 years ago, Vietnam started to emerge more in terms of taking up the interest, the excitement as an alternative, a China plus one strategy. So I would frame it in those terms.
Okay, great. So actually, just because of those Chinese made goods, right, and the tariff that was directly in the US, that created the relocation of companies that used to be sourcing in China and step by step relocating in neighboring countries such as Vietnam. I also heard and know that Vietnam has signed a lot of couple free trade agreements in with different countries, such as the EVFTA, which is the European free trade agreements, reducing by, I guess, 99% of all the trade and import duties to Europe. So it makes it immediately attractive for foreign buyers to look for alternative sources to Chinese products, right?
Yeah. So in regards to the free trade agreements, as you mentioned, yes, Vietnam has done a really good job in the last 5 years of signing big trade deals, which has helped the country. Um, Whereas China has been kind of stagnant. It hasn't been done too much with the West, other than RCEP, which is more focused in the Asia Pacific itself. So the free trade agreements that Vietnam has signed has really helped them, like you mentioned, Vietnam and Europe, Vietnam and other Asian countries, and it has decreased the tariffs between those countries. And now Vietnam is emerging as a more of a low cost manufacturing in some of the industries that China used to dominate, such as textiles, clothing, furniture, even now, and home consumer goods and electronics. And I should also mention that China was very good the last 20 or 30 years, but it's just natural for a country as China, they get rich and they get more sophisticated. So they want to make more sophisticated and more expensive products and technology. So it's just really natural that China is now moving into what let's see, 5G, AI, high tech electronics, solar, and things like that. So that means that the lesser, more polluting industries are moved to other countries such as Vietnam. So it's kind of natural.
Okay, great insight, Vin. Now, so you mentioned some of the topics and then the industries that Vietnam are good at. So, what are for you the main differences between made in China products and then made in Vietnam ones?
I guess the biggest advantage for any buyers or importers is the low cost because the labor in Vietnam is roughly $300 or $400 or $500 a month compared to about $1,000 or $1,200 a month in China. And so I think that's right off the biggest advantage is the savings in the low cost. I would say uh, Vietnam is getting better, but China still has the edge in major production lines. They make to the masses. They're good in infrastructure, logistics. They have the busiest port in Shanghai. And all of that has been developed the last 10, 15, 20 years. So they're very good at what they do. Whereas Vietnam, they're just kind of coming up, and there's a lot of growing pains. And so maybe the quality control might not be there, maybe the technology and the manufacturing and things like that. But they're getting better, of course. So
Okay, so you touch an important point, quality control. That's something we can talk after about the main difficulties and challenges you may encounter if you go to emerging markets. I want to just add one point. You talk about some of the top sectors that are in Vietnam and that are good. You have also footwear. Footwear is actually Vietnam is actually one of the key market and country that all the big brands such as Adidas and Nike are manufacturing their footwear. And then another point about the differences about those two countries, it's about the scale. In Vietnam, you will find a lot of small scale factories that will be able to accept very low MOQ, very low test order. So really help new entrants to start a product to really bring an idea to life, rather than in China you have more sophisticated, as you mentioned, Vin, and with high tech, so very precise, maybe very perfect, right? Creating the perfect product. So, but it may be harder to start as an SME or as a small business owner with Chinese manufacturers. Coming back, Vin, now to the pain points and challenges that you will find if you look to alternative countries such as India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, or Indonesia, for instance. What are your experience into going to such markets for sourcing and manufacturing?
I think the problem lies right from the get go, from A to Z, in terms of the service and finding the product, and then finding someone that can help you find the right item to make it to your specification, someone that can speak English or your language. Like I said, China has been doing this for such a long time that they have English sales teams, people on hand to help you out, to reach out to you. They have the whole buying experience down for you. You can even go to China, attend a trade show, a trade fair, and then they'll take you on a tour. They'll take you to the factory and things like that. Whereas in maybe Vietnam or India or neighboring countries, it's not as sophisticated, specifically in terms of finding the information. If you just look at Vietnamese companies, the websites, there's, you know, built haphazardly, and they might not have all the information up there. And then just to reach out to them, to contact or to find an English speaker is very, very difficult. And, you know, some of them are smaller, so they're fly by night operations that might be operating, you know, in 1 or 2 years, but later on you try to contact them and then they're gone. So it's a kind of a hit or miss at times with the Vietnam factories. And then a lot of times they might not have the exact product that you need or want. So again, it's just kind of growing pains, and you have to search and find the right people to make it work.
Okay, so find the right sources to identify suitable factories, maybe one of the pain points. Communicate with factories and then engage first-hand discussions with them may also be another barrier. And finally, you touched the point earlier, it can be also all the quality aspects. So if you choose to find one partner in Vietnam, then make sure to have a third party who will be going to the production line when you will be doing your mass production, because you need to keep an eye on that part as well, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. You have to have boots on the ground, so to speak, or someone or a partnership helping you, because it's really hard to do all the buying, the sourcing, the procurement from abroad. For example, are you going to trust that factory when you send over the deposit? You know, it could be tens, 20, $30,000, and then maybe that partner, that factory might not reach out to you, might not talk to you again. So you really have to have someone in Vietnam that you trust, that can verify, that can go meet the people at the factory, and then can verify that payment was made. And then, for example, like the production line, when they say a product is going to be made in the next 3 months, then you can take samples, take pictures, and something like that. So there has to be trust between both the factory and you, the buyer, in order to make it work.
Okay, great insight, Vin. So you've been buying from a Chinese manufacturer. You also manufacture before product in Vietnam. What are for you the steps that people have to follow to start basically starting their journey in Vietnam or in China?
Yeah, it's not easy because you really have to find the right product and the right market fit. So, you know, if you go to Alibaba or on one of those other popular websites, you can find a lot of different products, but other people are have access to the same product too. So it's not that easy in terms of buying a certain product and trying to sell that because other people could do the same, or there's already competition with that. So I think you really have to find something, a unique product or something that will work. You might have to try a few times, or if you are in the game long enough, then you can start to customize a product. And so once you get the capital and you know that there's a market demand, there's a need for the product, then you can scale up and then you can get a test order after finding out the factory. But you might want to look into sourcing companies. You can easily Google that, or through word of mouth, you might know people that are living in China or Vietnam that can help you out. But you want to find with a point person, someone that you can work with, that you can trust, and then go and search for the type of factory that you're looking for and the product. And then I would do small orders. And then from there, then you can scale up. And depending on your relationship with the factory, you can continue to grow that relationship.
Okay, great tips, Vin. You've been following the political relationship between the US and China. What are, from your thoughts, the directions that are taking both of the countries? Do you think in the next upcoming years, relationship will be becoming more and more tough, meaning that neighboring countries in the region will be more under the radar and chosen by foreign buyers, or do you think there may be a type of stability that will happen, and maybe okay, the two countries are still working with each other and making those trade tariff easier to help businesses and exchange between those two parts of the world?
Yeah, unfortunately, the political climate between China and the U.S. is not very good right now. The most of the public, I think, around the world too, there's a backlash for any type of China sourcing and manufacturing. The Communist Party, the government, is not seen in a good light. And unfortunately, I think that relationship will continue to have to be like that in the near future, the next 3 to 5 years. It doesn't seem like it'll get better in those terms. I think just because people I guess, have listened to the politicians, and Trump has bashed China for decades now, and now the public is just not really, I guess, keen on the Chinese political system. And then you throw in the spying cases, and there's distrust between the United States and China. So it doesn't really look good in that term, in those terms. But in terms of manufacturing and buying and sourcing, I think for certain products and industries, I think it will continue to be business as usual. I mean, there will be higher prices, and there must be ways to work around that. But I think for a lot of goods that is produced in China, I think they'll continue to be purchased in the United States, consumed in the United States. But having said that, there's going to be alternatives because people want to secure their supply chain. So we'll see India and Vietnam, those types of countries have more opportunity in terms of producing certain products too.
Okay. Great, Vin, great insight. And what would be basically three tips you would give to new entrants, people looking to benchmark the opportunities in the region, and then benchmarking, for instance, China versus Vietnam? What you would tell them to do as first steps to initiate first either buying test order, or due diligence, or things that they must know before starting?
I think number one, if you can attend a trade show in the country that you're looking to source in, so you can find that through Google. You can search the Guangzhou fair has been very popular for decades, for 20, 30, 40 years now. So that's probably the largest one in Canton, China. And then if you're into maybe home and garden or furniture or anything like that, you can search and look for alternative shows. Could be in Vietnam, could be Hanoi, mostly likely Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City. And then if you could make a trip there, they might spend a week in Vietnam or Southeast Asia to travel to those trade shows. And then I think that's the first thing you want to do. And then you can make a lot of contacts through that. So that's number one, attend a trade show. Number two is build those relationships. And then I think three is you want to just test and try. It's going to take 2, 3, 4 failures, maybe some items before you get traction, and then stick with it. And then I think it could pay off if you stick with it long enough.
Okay, I totally agree with your tips. Coming to Asia to attend at those fair, you can immediately engage with new potential manufacturers, suppliers. You have usually the direct point of contact, meaning that later on, as soon as you can do a test order, ask for a new product development or the latest trends, you already save a lot of time rather than going on Alibaba where everything going to be online. But breaking that ice and then really doing that first step into engaging physically with potential suppliers may always be rewarding for the long run. And then, as you say, try to find someone who is flexible enough to help you to do at least a test order. It can be hundreds of pieces, for instance. If they have a product that they already developed and selling to some key markets, you can buy that product and then test the market. And then later on, you can do your own customizations and then improve that product from the feedback that you get from your clients.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Vin, a lot for your tips and insights today. I hope you guys get a better understanding about what are the current trends between sourcing in China versus other countries such as Vietnam. I will leave below in the description more details about the topics that we highlight today, as well as Vin Ho YouTube channels if you want to directly connect and engage with him.
Great. Thanks, Guillaume. Appreciate it.